All right, so that was a long section of some pretty disgusting garbage disposal lows. What's up, everybody? Mark with Cardivox Academy here, and today we are doing, again, Signs of the Swarm, but we've got a different vocalist, Dave Simonich. Simonich? I'm not sure. If anybody wants to let me know, please do so. Different vocalist than our last Signs of the Swarm video, which was CJ McCreary. So, different things to talk about. Now, I've got some announcements about the YouTube channel here that we're going to talk about briefly. If you want to just skip to the reaction, you can hit this timestamp below. That'll get you right to the reaction. However, if you want to know some things that are changing with the channel, stick around. Okay, so one thing we're going to do is we're going to start having voted reaction videos only twice a month versus every week. Reason for that is I love deathcore. I love it. I love the vocals. I think the musicianship is really interesting most of the time. The vocals are very acrobatic. There's a lot to talk about. But the thing is, there's a whole wide world of metal out there. I kind of want to talk about black metal. I want to talk about slam. I mean, we could even get crazy every once in a while and talk about, like, I don't know, we could do like a history lesson and do like something old, like maybe some like arena rock or something. I don't know, there's just a whole wide world we could get into. So what we're going to do is we're going to have the voted videos twice a month. And then outside of that, we're going to, Alex and I, we're going to choose a video to bring something new to the table. Because I really want to expand the viewership, get some more types of metal in the mix. Beyond that, the Kardashev Facebook community page, we are looking for mods. There is a post on that page because we've breached 2,000 members. We've got over 2,000 members now. So if you want to join the group, or if you're in the group and you want to think about, potentially being a mod and helping us out, there's a post in the community page all about that to let you know what the status is and what it's going to be. But beyond that, let's go ahead. Let's get into the reaction. I am familiar with Dave here. Not a whole lot, but he's got a very interesting vocal style, and we're actually going to look at a couple videos, this and another, to talk a little bit about his lows. If he and I got in a room, I think it'd be really fascinating because I approach some of these sounds differently than I think he does, and it would just be cool to talk about. Also, I found this really cool slide to start us off. Look at that. But okay, let's go ahead and jump into it here. Let's go back to the beginning, and let's talk about it. Whenever a deathcore song starts quiet, something's gonna happen. Here it comes. Yeah. All right, so let's talk about some of that. So a couple things I want to mention is in the beginning, he has a very interesting high tone, and we'll go ahead and we'll kind of listen to it together. But there's like this section we just listened to, it's almost in two parts, right? And in the first half, he's got a tighter engagement of the back of the tongue, and in the second part, he's got a looser engagement in the back of the tongue. One thing you can do to affect your high, like a lot of people, they find their high tone, right? They're like, yay! And they stop there. But that's like the base. That's where you start. One thing you can do is you can add some engagement to the back of your tongue. Not like straining it, but just tightening it up a little bit. Same thing with the soft palate. And you can turn that into more of a... My fiance just got home. She waved to me. Hi, love you. But you can turn that into less of a... and more of a... Do you hear that? All I'm doing is I'm tightening up the soft palate and the back of the tongue. And the cool thing about it is when we tighten these muscles, a little bit goes a long way. So I'm not like clamping down or anything. It's minute. If I had a way to shoot a camera, like put a camera in my mouth and show you, I would. That might be something we should try in the future. But anyways, so the first half, the second half, see the difference? Some other things that I thought were cool. I thought I saw, like, we could visually look at the tunnel throat. Let's see, that was right around, I think that's too far. I think it's coming up here. Now, it's a music video, so he's probably lip syncing, but looks like he's doing the mouth shapes as true to form as possible, so let's check it out. There it is. Yeah, so there are a lot of different ways to do the old tunnel throat. If you've watched any of my other videos, you've heard me say that I think tunnel throat's kind of a lame word for it, but it's the word we have, so it's the word we'll use. Because in actuality, you're not really manipulating your throat as much as you're manipulating the oral cavity. So tunnel mouth would make more sense to me, but this is a pretty standard way to do it. Basically, tongue on the bottom teeth, curved forward, creating a little bit of a seal with the lips, and it turns your high from to see. I do mine a little differently. I actually kind of do like a taco tongue, and I brace it between my upper teeth, and then I do the tip of the tongue, somewhere like this. That's how I do mine, and he actually does something very similar later in the song. But those are some cool things that I wanted to talk about. So let's keep going. Nice. All right. Oh, that riff is sick. All right, so that was a long section of some pretty disgusting garbage disposal lows. And if you're not like a metal person and somehow you found your way to this video, that's a compliment. Like, if you tell a vocalist, like, those vocals were just grotesque and you sounded like a garbage can falling down an alley, rolling through an alleyway, that's a really nice thing to say. So I think this is one of the areas where he and I would probably do this a little bit differently. Here's how I would do it. Here's how I'd try to go for that sound. The first thing is I would do a guttural, but I'd base it, instead of on an ooh, I'd base it on an E. Right there. Then I'd probably take the tip of my tongue and kind of like fold it back. Now, I'm not like doing anything crazy with my tongue. I'm not like choking myself, right? Just a little bit of a fold back. Then I'd close my lips around it. The last thing I'd do, and this is a little bit harder to do, before you do this sort of stuff, you should learn how to have a steady airflow. It's all with this guy. Good old diaphragm. Our friend the diaphragm. But I would add some intentional breathiness to it. Not a lot, but I would give it sort of a while doing the vocals. So you can kind of hear the difference. So without it, there we go. Now if I add a little bit of like extra airflow, sort of a like to it, but very faint. Do you hear the difference? Part of what you're hearing is the air like buffeting over the lips, right? So when I just add a little bit of like a, but in that tongue position, and then of course, I'm not a big fan of it. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm just not a big fan of it. But if I take my hand and do this, I'll show you. Different things to think about, but that's how I would approach that sound. He's a little higher and crispier than mine is, but if I was doing a cover of this song, that's how I would do it. Let's keep going. Oh! I want to talk about those highs. Let's go, I think it was about right here. No, I was a little farther forward. Sorry, folks. We'll listen to this part again. It's good. Yes! Okay, so you can also use controlled, like a controlled airstream, a little bit more breathiness than you would normal on your highs as well, and that's going to do a lot of really cool things. Again, this is a really like there's a lot of balance in this, right? A lot of people, when they've got their breath control down and they start to try to add a little bit of breathiness to their vocals, they push it all out at once, and it's literally just going from like to like, hear that minute change? Let me get a little closer to the microphone here. Oh, hold on. I'll take the elevator down. Sorry, folks. Bad jokes for days. But anyways, so like going just from like here to here. That's all I'm adding, really. But you can do that to your highs as well. So for example, if I was doing like a high and I added some breathiness to it, here it gets kind of higher, and I'm doing like sort of a cat hissing thing going on. Now, it sounds like he's got that engagement in the back of the tongue as well, so it's more of like a very cool stuff. Oh, classy. That's a really cool thing to do. If you're a vocalist, don't overdo it. But did you hear how he slowly climbed, slowly rose to like his highest high and then dropped to a low? Don't overdo it, but it's a cool way every once in a while to show off your range a little bit. And another way he's getting these highs so high is he's existing in a nasal resonance right here. Like, I'm going to do a high without nasal resonance, and I'll do one with nasal resonance, and y'all are going to see the difference. So that's without. Did you hear the nasal resonance at the beginning? So without, with. That's all. You basically do the same thing if you were to say, but you're using your false chords to create the compression and the soft tissues to make the distortion. So there's that. Yeah, this dude's all over the place, but in a very good way. That's a cool riff. Ooh, that's not sanitary. Y'all are gonna get an infection doing it in the mud like that. So one thing, I just want to talk a little bit, one thing that he doesn't look, he's looking a little bit rough there. One thing, people who aren't big fans of deathcore, they kind of sometimes talk down about it because like that riff, right? It's a little repetitive. There's not a lot of like dynamism going on, but I think having that in contrast to the more complex riffs is kind of what makes it cool. Like, I don't know if I'd want a full song of that, but like we've had the vocals going all over the place. Everything's been, more complex, and then we get just like a kind of repetitive riff to sort of cleanse the palate. I like it personally. I'm a big fan. Refreshing. So one thing that with those screams that he was just doing, boy, were they neat. Did you hear how it was kind of starting high? And it was kind of closing around each word. One thing that when you really nail that, you'll be able to shift that distortion and that resonance feeling from here to here. So, I literally feel the vibration moving from here to here. And if you want to practice what it feels like to move that vibration without actually screaming, to just preserve your voice a little bit if you're new, just do it with a clean note. Oh, 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 oh. Just practice that and you'll be like, oh, it's not as hard to move resonance as I thought. That's the thing. Like, a lot of this stuff seems very, very difficult because it's such a crazy sound, but most of us know how to move resonance around and manipulate our soft palate and change our tongue shape just because we've been talking our whole lives. And it's creating the distortion that's the tough part. But once you create that distortion, most people, not everybody, and if not, it's okay, by the way, we all learn at our own pace. But most people, it's just kind of like, boom. Oh, this is how it works. But anyways, let's keep going. I just wanted to point that out. Oh, this is the part where you punch your best friend. All right. So he's pulling out all the stops right now. The low, let's talk about that low a little bit because I actually have another video this video I've seen many, many times and I wanted to point it out. Let me just pull it up. We gotta take this one and make it smaller. One video must get smaller and one video must get large. Okay, so this is another video. Same dude, same band. And now, one thing you probably notice. Actually, let me just make this bigger real quick. Give me a second, folks. We're just gonna do this in real time. We'll do it live. Okay, so one thing you're gonna notice here is that, and I'll play this section so you can hear what's going on. But do you see how the space, like where his neck essentially turns into his chin, is basically pushed out? Now, Dave, if you're watching this, I love you. You're a rad dude. This is probably more than most people would need to do, and there's a little strain going on here, so I don't want you to necessarily look like this. And you know what? None of us are going to be 100%. The guy looks great through like the majority of the video. He's a fantastic vocalist, but you know, if you were to record me doing vocals and take a snapshot, there would be moments where I maybe am pushing a little hard too. We're human. It's a human instrument. But anyways, the point is, the right around here, you can see that section. So there's this part of the throat, kind of where your tongue connects to. It's called the hyoid bone, right? It's a floating bone. And if you relax, the trick is not to push it out, but to relax, you'll actually create a little bit of like a cavernous space down in your laryngopharynx, right? And so let's go ahead and make this smaller. Well, let's play this a little bit so you can kind of hear what he's doing. All right, so let's play around, and that, you know, we can kind of see like, oh, okay, that's how he's getting so crazy low. So let's do a low. If you know how to do one, we can do it together. If not, sit tight. But I'll make this full screen again. Pa-pam. So let's do a low without that. Let's do a low without that throat open. Sorry if you can hear a bunch of stuff going on in the background. My dog's being crazy. Anyways, so I'm gonna do a low without that throat relaxation here. It's not really that low, is it? Now, I'm going to relax. I'm going to push very, very gently. A little bit goes a long way with this. You don't have to look like a bullfrog. Bullfrog vocals. That's what these are called. Anyway, now I'm going to push that out, relax it. And I won't do a guttural tongue because that's going to make it sound lower. So my tongue's going to be neutral. See how it's lower? That's what we're doing. And it's very relaxed. I don't feel any burning in the muscles. I don't feel like I'm having to push through the pain. Oh, God, if anybody ever says that, just don't. No. But anyways, I got off track because I got very excited. But yes, that's how this guy's getting lower. And if you are not getting as low as you want, might be something to think about. Did you hear that? So that's one of the coolest things that, like, the tunnel is like one of the coolest things to play with, because just changing your mouth can change the sound of that tunnel so much. Like, right? And then if I kind of change the way my soft palate, the velum, is touching the back of my tongue. So those two together. Sounds dirty, but in such a good way. Let's see how much of this song's left. Doesn't look like much. Man, you'd never catch me getting crazy in mud. Good Lord. So let's talk about one more thing. One more thing. Coming up. So one thing that is important is that sometimes when people are starting to articulate more, like they've got this sound, right? They've got that sound, and then they start trying to articulate it. What'll happen is their consonants will shut around the airflow, and they'll sort of do what I call like dumping air. They'll dump a bunch of air into their mouths, and then you'll feel that air pressure build up, and that air pressure is actually going to push back, right? So you're going to have air pressure pushing towards the lips, and then you're going to have air pressure pushing back down your throat, right? So, I mean, just for fun, close your mouth and fill up your mouth with air and push on that air. Don't do this while you're screaming. This is an example of what the wrong way feels like. But you're going to feel pressure not only pushing forward, but pushing back. And that's not, A, it doesn't feel good, and B, it's going to make it harder for you to control the false chords, right? Because you've got air pushing down on them, and we're trying to hold them in the correct position and have them vibrate. So instead, what you can do is you can actually articulate consonants kind of with your cheeks. This requires a little bit of that breathiness that I talked about at the beginning of the video. But like, for example, if I do like a low, that's normal. A little bit of breathiness. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of puffing my cheeks, basically like that. And that is kind of how I'm doing the articulation. And it sounds, I wish I could see his face a little bit better, but it kind of sounds like that's what he did. You see that? And then it's an easy way for my airflow to be more consistent, right? It's a little bit more consistent, and I'm managing it with little puffs versus like closing off the airflow entirely, pressure building up, and then it bashing out. I think that's the end of the song. Yeah, great suggestion. Signs of the Swarm, Malevolent Enslavement. Next week, we are going to we're either going to get into some black metal, because black metal's my gig. That's probably my favorite. Either that, or maybe we'll bring some slam onto the channel. Now that I'm in a slam band, and I'm kind of having to delve down that road myself, it might be fun for us to learn together. But let's get to our Carnivox Academy Facebook community feature. Bam! So this video was actually posted about 2 weeks ago, and I wanted to do the feature, and then I didn't do it for the last video, so now we're going to do it for this video. So the reason I'm picking this one is because Haley here is very much on the right track. And I'm also picking it because it's not a deathcore style, right? This is something closer that you'd hear in like maybe a black metal, some more old school death metal. And I've got some tips on how you can tighten it up, maybe add a little bit more distortion, and get a little bit more grit. Although, truthfully, what you're doing right now is not bad for that genre. So let's go back to the beginning. Back to the beginning, where the brave may live forever. Let's hear what's going on. Let's turn up the volume here as well.
From the ashes of my roads, the human will rise to live again. There's this poetry of you. There's this poetry of me and you.
So, that is very much on the right track. Like I said, for like a more... Sorry. Facebook likes to just play videos. So that's very much on the right track for like a black metal from the ashes of my road. And that's a pretty cool technique, and one that sounds amazing in a black metal mix. There are a couple things though that I'm going to suggest. But first, positive feedback. It sounds like your distortion is very nicely placed. I don't hear any strain. This type of vocal requires a lot of relaxation, and you've got that down. Also, I can tell that you're using your lips to kind of manipulate the sound. There's one section where you almost like do like a little frown to bring it down, and that's awesome. Here are two things that I think you can do to get a little bit more out of this vocal that you're doing. The first, it sounds like your diaphragm is not as engaged as it could be. If you take the diaphragm, right, and you can practice this by like laughing, like put your hand on your sternum, well, the base of your thumb on your sternum, so that your hand is sitting on your diaphragm. And what I want you to do is just right? I did this in another video, and it really helps. But that feeling of the diaphragm, that feeling when we learn to control it is very similar to when we go, and so with like very little diaphragm, doesn't sound bad, but if I throw some diaphragm underneath it, and this is minimal, it's not a lot. Here I'm getting a little bit more distortion. It's sounding a little bit more powerful. From the ashes of my road! Right? The other thing is your tongue is sitting very, very flat and neutral, which is very good for certain sounds. I would say just kind of get creative with that. Throw some like in there. Like if you create a little bowl with the back of your tongue. You'll get kind of like a thin, almost like a reverse tunnel, right? Because the normal tunnel, we're creating a fold in the front, create a fold in the back. From the ashes of my road! See, a lot more distortion, a little bit more powerful of a sound, and all I've done is add a little diaphragm and play around with the engagement of the back of my tongue. But, awesome job. You're doing great, and I'm excited to hear more. And that's all I got. But anyway, thank you so much for checking out this video. We're going to do another one, probably either tomorrow. Well, we'll probably do another one tomorrow to get some more variety in there. But, as always, many thanks, much love, I'm out.